The following is a series of candid conversations. The content is intended for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for seeking help from a mental health care professional. To learn more info regarding additional disclaimers, privacy policies, and terms and conditions, please visit hellodrtami.com.
Bonjour, hello, this is Dr. Tami, your host of PsychologistSay, a podcast where we create conversations about everyday life from a clinical psychologist perspective. Your body works as this machine. It's kind of like your car. It can only run so long without an oil change. Or, if you run out of gas, it's going to malfunction. Everything on that car needs to be in sync and update, maintained to run, right?
Mm-hmm. You got to get it tuned up every once in a while.
So our bodies are no different. And I think this is what's kind of the biggest barrier to people maybe achieving a certain level of health is because everything's broken down into specific disciplines. So, since I'm a psychologist, I cannot just order lab work and say, well, let me examine your vitamin B's and D and see how you're doing with those, rule out all these medical conditions that could be part of this as well. I can't do that. So then I have to refer them to a medical doctor and hope that they do that because I can't, so it's kind of relying on these other fields to be able to provide this missing data. And we don't have control over whether they will or they won't run that. And so it's almost like I do feel for patients who come in and they want help. And then I have to refer them to several other people to try to get this overall view of what else could this be, and not just dive into like, well, you have an anxiety or depression,
right?
Because there are so many other factors that can come into play, and so a lot of the times I think you end up going to a psychologist or a therapist for anxiety, and then you go to your medical doctor for what feels like sleep or an irritable bowel syndrome or my stomach pains. And then you go to maybe a chiropractor for back and muscle tension. And do you see how those are all separate disciplines that should all be working together that can come to your tune-up for your car. You can go to a one stop and get a full tune-up because otherwise all these barriers are kind of breaking down and you're only getting that one thing that you need.
Yeah, I could say that I changed a lot of my diet around. I've had some issues with my intestines and stuff like that, and I went to go see a doctor. I believe it was a nutritionist. And they had me go on this food diet, kind of restrict me from consuming a lot of things. And once I changed that around, I did start noticing better sleep, better just energy and all that stuff. But also I had been like supplementing my diet with all this, bad stuff for me. And I just wasn't dealing with, my mental health. I ended up, being really depressed or being angry that I can't consume all these things. And I was like, what is this?
I want to eat all of the processed food that I want to be able to throw this in the microwave. I want to be, and I think that's why we have to start communicating, because eventually it does. And this is something that maybe a lot of us haven't been confronted with, because even myself, I have to confront myself with my own accountability. And so the more I learn accountability, and even so, the more I learn about what else I can do for my mood, or my sleep, it is work. And it's not a lot of work, but it does take some self-discipline, sacrifice, and it does take changing those behaviors that I've had since I've been a kid, comfort foods, eating processed foods, frozen, all this like immediate stuff that when you're eating it, you feel good. It's like this kind of calming comfort, but it's also highly, it's loaded with all of these preservatives and things that our body isn't meant to have. And so it doesn't break down. And that's where we can start to feel our body can only handle so much that it shouldn't have. Those are kind of like toxins. They're not needed. So your body has to work really hard to break through all those things that are not part of a natural diet. So that's where you start to think, oh boy, can I be my own worst enemy here?
Oh yeah.
Right?
So it's easy to fall back into it. That's a little bit part of the psychology of it. Your brain is just, I can have that. Why can't I? Why are we?
Well, naturally,
why are we withdrawing from this?
The one thing I think every human being does not like to be told is you can't or no.
Right.
So, or we do not like to feel like we're being controlled. And so we start to retaliate. It's anytime, if I ever do this with a person, I put up my hands and they put up their hands and I kind of push on, if we're touching palms and I push, the immediate thing I get is what? Pushback,
right?
Resistance. And so it's like that. But in reality, we're doing that with ourselves now. There's nobody on the other side telling us we should or we have to. That's where accountability comes into play. We're all fighting with ourselves of, I want to eat the bag of chips. I don't want to eat the baked apple crisp, sliced hydrated apple or whatever.
Oh my gosh. I made I made ratatouille last summer or the summer before last in August. And it was so hot, which is another story, but this meal took me like 5 hours to make. And, by the end of it, it wasn't even like enjoyable, even though it was delicious. We were just like, okay, it took so long. It took so long to eat. But, in the bigger picture, going back and we, eating it again, and it was delicious. And, we had to put the time in to cook this really nice meal, also very good for us, it's right. And it was a task. We could have just popped in some, frozen food and called it a night.
Right. And so this is all the stuff that where I think we're getting to a place where we're pretty aware. If you're not, there are a ton of documentaries that highlight this on Netflix. I watch, and if you don't take time to watch them, then I think, the more you know, the more you may want to look at accountability and change, because now you can't say you don't know. And so it's kind of part of that, like taking this time to say, okay, what else can I do? If I'm feeling fatigue, if I'm feeling unmotivated, if I'm feeling unsatisfied, if one day I'm on top of the world and the next day I can't get out of bed, trust me, these are all things that we can feel. So it's maybe you're already being treated, and sometimes people are treated and they're maxed out on their antidepressants, or they're now adding something else to help with. And these are all real life problems, situations that are occurring in our mental health world. And that's where I think talking about stuff like this, to me, it opens up this area of there's so much more that can be done. Yet a lot of it comes from individually. I have to look at things like this other area. A lot of times I'll tell my patient, okay, your natural antidepressant is exercise. Your body will start to stimulate the serotonin. And I know it's tough to exercise because it's kind of like telling somebody who doesn't have energy or motivation and to get out and just start exercising.
Right.
That's almost like just slapping them in the face. Yet, if I tell them that's enhancing, that's like almost taking an antidepressant or enhancing the one that they're on, there has to be a little level of, okay, how much am I willing to fight through some of this just to get started with a 3-minute walk? because I can't get out there and do it for them. I can't even do it for myself. I have to talk myself into
Yeah.
getting out and exercising. And I know that's backwards, but this is kind of how we are as humans. It's anything that's kind of tough or, challenging. We've been trained. There's something else immediate that should fix that. And now it's coming around where no, there's not. And that's where all of these other areas are helping us say, we cannot just take one pill, or we cannot just maybe go to therapy, or we can't, what has to change at home? What do we have to change within us to get this overall feeling that we're searching for? Because it's not a one-stop shop.
No, it's
a good example of that would be like in therapy. So this is somebody maybe not on medications, but they're doing the therapy. They're coming in weekly or twice a week, yet they're not doing any work at home. They're relying on their 50 minutes with me to then kind of tell me how everything's not working well or how things are working okay. Yet the stuff that it's kind of like they're saving it for that one. And I was like, that's not how you're going to get better. The work this is where you come to set the goals. The work comes when you leave, and then you implement these changes throughout the week that can then say, now how did that work for you?
Right.
So I think this is overall in every discipline, maybe it does come back down to what are we willing to do outside of the office or the provider that we're with to then help enhance our overall well-being.
Getting those, everyday goals is, something you should definitely have in your day, especially for your mental health and, your well-being and in general. You want to make sure you drink 8 glasses of water a day,
which is very difficult.
It's a big ask.
Every listener's like, okay, I've tried that. That just. Yeah. Majority of people do not get their fruits and vegetables. They're supposed to get, I think, 5 to 9 servings a day. But think about everybody listening. How many fruits and vegetables have you had today, and how many did you have yesterday? Usually, it's like maybe 1 to 2, sometimes 0.
Yeah.
So to be at optimal health with your fruits, 5 to 9 per day, so that is not an easy task. Yet accountability is like, well, I can't just say it's not, just keep saying it's not easy. It's not easy. What am I willing to do to promote a small change in this area? Maybe every day I want to at least eat an apple. Okay, so I don't have to get 5 to 9, but I want to make sure I at least have 1 to 2. So that's because I deal with this change. We are creatures of habit. We like balance. Even our internal body likes homeostasis. It wants to just kind of stay where it's been. And so that means even if we're in a state that is unhealthy, it's still what we're used to, and it's still what we gravitate toward. So that's what makes change so difficult. We're fighting against what we've been regulated for years to be, this is our normal. So it's hard for me to just change that, even if it's supposed to be good for me.
Right. Your biggest obstacle tends to be yourself at the point where you have to make the decision to, do what you need to do for your day. It's that, do I want to do this? And, like, I don't want to do this, or I want to do this. You're the person that needs to be motivated and get those things accomplished.
Well, and so just so people don't start to feel, because we've all been there, motivation for change is one of the biggest problems, and that's for every person. So it isn't, it's achievable, yet I want people to understand that there's theories, there's therapies, how do I stay motivated for change that lasts maybe more than 2 to 3 days? How do I keep doing this? That's, when people set a New Year's resolution, I don't know what the data is, but many people do not keep them, but they may do good those first few days. It's normal. So I want people to first know that. Yet it's like, okay, you almost have to like then find something or somebody to talk to about how do I start to shift this change into what's going to motivate me into continuing on with change? What's keeping me from? And that's actually like some work that uh, motivational interviewing. That's a therapy. That looks at the stages of change. It's complex, but you have to identify where you're at in these. If you're ready to change, if you're confident, there's all these variables, and so that's where maybe some people, it's not just I'm going to decide to do this, because I think we've all decided to do this, whatever it is. We've failed at it, or we have more failure than we do success at doing a really big permanent change. So this is where I want people to know, yes, it's not easy, but learning these things, talking about them, connecting with others. How do I start to develop accountability for myself, yet also rely on some people to kind of talk me through this change, support me while I'm going through this.